Ooga chaka chaka chaka. Ooga chaka chaka chaka. Ooga chaka chaka chaka. Ooga chaka chaka chaka. I'm not going to sing. Don't worry. Welcome everyone to Harebrained Games, where we do our gaming reviews from time to time. I like to think periodically, but let's admit it, sometimes it's just random chaos in the scheduling department here. We're going to talk about Rise of Tribes today. This is a Kickstarter game that arrived several weeks ago that I'm just now getting a chance to play. Now, what's the premise of this? Well, you are leading a tribe in the prehistoric period, and the idea is you're going to grow and develop and advance your tribe farther along than any of your tribal opponents. It plays 2 to 4 players, probably takes about an hour, ages 10 and up, but let's admit it, there's no standard on that one. Who knows? I've seen 6-year-olds play far more complicated games. But moving aside, let's take a look at the gameplay and see what it's about. Alright, I have set up a 2-player scenario for this game. Let's go over some quick component understanding. The terrain tiles are randomized, although the geometric shape does vary based on player count. So this is a 2-player geometric shape to put them in, although the tiles will be random, which has some effect on moving and where you're going to be able to gather resources, etc. So that's the main focal point of play. There are various resources that will go on there. These 3 resources here, all ones that you will collect as part of the terrain matching the resources. It won't make sense. Here we have the main board where the actions are taken. There are 4 primary specific actions: grow, move, gather, and lead. These will become more clear as to their purpose when I start doing the gameplay scenario. Also, there are events. Whenever a player rolls identical die faces on the 2 die that they roll each turn, one of these will come out. You can have 2 events, and then these events do, well, various different things. They just kind of add a little bit of flavor and interrupted originality to each of the gameplays. As for each player, they have their own placard with their own tribe here. There are special abilities in the advanced part, but for the most part we're going to just cover this basic gameplay. They have their little units, their little tribal folk, and then they have a deck of cards. These are goal cards. Now, these cards come out progressively over the course of play as a result of the lead action. Little interesting twist. Also, in order to create villages, which you want to do, because villages always generate points, and as we all know, in the prehistoric period, the tribe with the most points obviously survived. We have this village set up here that tells you how many of the resources it takes at your turn to be able to create villages to place on the board. That's really all of the pieces. It's actually pretty concise as far as the amount of pieces and tokens and such that we'll be dealing with. These are used for special, well, these are villages that you place. These are special things that come out as a result of events, etc., etc. But that's basically an overview of the components that come with play. Now let's get into the actual action. Okay, I have laid out a 2-player match that we will begin right now. We will begin with red, simply because it's closer. We will move the light out to avoid some glare. And on a given player turn, you'll notice that I have set up everything for 2 players, which means that this is the 2-player scenario. They've already placed their first units, their first village or tribal members on the board, 2 for the starting player, 3 for the second player, etc. I've also laid out the action chart, the action board, in such a fashion, and I've got the event deck ready to roll. Well, the dice will roll, but the event deck will be flipped over. I've shuffled the gold cards, and we can begin. We follow the score or the order of play in order to understand what to do each turn. First off, we score villages. No one has a village yet. We haven't built one. In order to build one, we have to collect this many resources, and then at the end of the turn, we can build them. Second, we roll the dice. Now, this might seem to be an advanced technique, but don't worry. You do it a couple times, it'll feel really natural. Ready? Whew! Look at that. And we have effectively snake eyes, but it counts as doubles. So what does that mean? It means our first event happens right now. It is Plentiful Stone. Place 6 stone on this card. By doing so, you will be able to gather extra. So if I ever gather from mountain hexes, then I will be able to take 2 additional from here as well. So this is an opportunity to kind of like cash in on a little bonus for this event card. This is a happy event. This is the good event of the South, not the wicked event of the West. Alright, so now we have our choice. As a red player, what are we going to do? How are we going to bump the weather? What are we going to do to manipulate it? Now, you'll notice that these are the standard actions. Whenever you take one of these actions, this is what you get by default. If you have 2 suns, when you're done moving your dice into position, you get the bonus action, which gives you a little nudge. However, if you have 2 moons, then you've been mooned, and that means you get the lesser benefit of all of them. That really is kind of it's an interesting thing. We'll talk about that in my comments, but let's say, for example, we're going to grow. That's usually what I'd start with. There's no benefit here. There's no 2 moons, no 2 suns, so I get 3 units. So I'm going to take 3 units here. I'm going to place them where I already have units. Obviously, I can't do that more than that place. Now that's 5. Maximum on each cell, each tile is 5. If there's ever a case where there is more than 5, then later on in your turn you will have to resolve conflicts, and that usually means attrition for all. You get attrition, and you get attrition, and you get attrition. That's it. Second place, I'm going to go ahead and move. So we're going to do this. Now I get to move. Once again, no bonus, so 4. So, what does that mean to me, the valuable viewer? It means that I can move up to 4 of my tribes one space. I don't have any extra bonuses, so it's 1 move per customer. So let's say I moved here, and I moved here, and I left these here. That puts me in a good spot. Why? Because now I have tribal units on each type of terrain, all 3 types of terrain. That will help me later. And that's the end of my 2 actions. Now we resolve conflicts, of which there are none. No one's feeling self-conflicted. Then build villages, which I cannot do. I don't have any resources. And complete goals, of which I have none. So that's a pretty basic starter turn. Now we're going to go and have blue see if it can do any better. Alright. Now it's time for blue, lonely little blue. It too has no villages because it's just starting out. So it's just going to take these 2 dies that I've left it, and now we're going to do this advanced move called rolling the dice. Ooh! How fortuitous is that? Now we have 2 events, because once again we rolled doubles. What is this? Saber-toothed tiger. Place saber-toothed tiger on a mountain hex. Okay, saber-toothed tiger is one of my tokens on a mountain hex. Well, guess what? Of course we're going to mess with red. That's what we do. We're tribes. When placed, remove 1 tribe member from each player in the affected hex. Ooh, not cool. Spend a die on this card and remove 1 tribe member from Tiger Hex to defeat it and gain 1 victory point. So, and any time that there's any doubles, again, the active player moves Tiger to a new mountain. So basically, it's kind of a little attack drone with sharp, pointy teeth that you can send out and about. So, yes. Cool. Alright, so now we have the more important, which is how we're going to take our actions. Now, right now, I think the first thing it will do, if it grows, and this is the problem, if it just chooses grow, it's going to have a lesser action. No matter what it does, it's going to get stuck with doing the lesser of any actions. Still think it's worth it to grow. So it's going to grow. It's going to take 2 units, 2 of its tribal units, and it will, once again, place them there. Now it has another choice what to do. It's going to actually do lead. It's a little inefficient, but whatever. And it lets you draw, instead of 2 cards, because it's mooned, it draws 1. This is one of its possible goals. But look, it's oxen. If it can use these resources to complete this, it gets a victory point, and it can gather from an additional hex when it's gather time, which we'll go over shortly. Now let's go back to red for its turn. Okay, well at this point we're just going to go ahead and slap through some turns at a more high level, because turns really are very quick, so rather than go back and forth, let's just keep rolling so I can give you the best possible gameplay in the shortest amount of time. It is now red's turn. Once again, no villages, so we're going to roll. Look at that, we have a sun, and we have a empty die. So we're going to continue to we're going to grow again, which means 3, so I can take 3 of my guys and put 2 here and 1 here. We're then going to move here. Once again, I can move up to 4, so I'm going to move 1 here and move 1 here. That's the end of my turn. Once again, no conflicts, etc. Okay, now we're on to blue. Blue has a village, which means blue gets a victory point at the start of every turn for every village that they possess. Now, they're going to roll the die, and look at that, we got, once again, a sun and nothing else. Alright. Yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and continue on my way with an actual lead. I'm going to do lead. This lets me draw 2 cards. 2 cards, and I have at my disposal majority in mountains and majority in 5 connecting spaces. These are goals more than, they don't give me special abilities in the game, but they're worth more victory points once I complete them, 2 and 3 respectively. And so if I have a majority of units in 3 mountain hexes, which is not going to be easy for blue because there's not near that many, or majority in 5 connecting, then he's going to get some points. Alright, so that's that. And then my second die is going to be, he's going to pull this off. Watch this. He's going to move. Now he can move up to 4 spaces, and what he's going to do, he's just going to move here, and he's going to move here. Alright. Why would he do that and disperse himself? We're going to find out shortly. Now he's taken his actions. There's no conflict. Now he can build villages or complete goals. He doesn't have enough to build a village, but he's going to complete a goal because guess what? He just got majority in 5 connections. Majority is having more of your meeples in a tile than all the other players combined. And guess what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All connecting. 2 points. So now he's got a nice big jump. He's really moved away. And that's the end of their turn. Now we're on to red. Once again, still no villages. Might need to start looking at some goals here. Alright, so then he's going to here. Does he grow? Does he move? Does he gather? He's going to gather. And look at that. Double sun means in all 3 spaces he can grab 2 resources. So that's 2 blue, 2 fish, 2 stone, and 2 mountains, plus he gets the plentiful stone bonus. This is a good thing. Second action is he's going to lead, which gives him 2 more cards to think about getting. Occupy any 8 hexes. That'll be worth some points. And majority in forests. Ooh, majority in forests. 3 forest hexes. If we get the majority, we're going to get some points. So that's that. So now what is red going to do? Once again, still no conflict, but we can actually complete a village. So we're going to put a village in the back because we're chickens. And we're also going to complete the bow, which costs 2 plus 1. So now the bow is completed, which means that whenever I attack, I can remove a tribal unit from another player. And you'll notice, finally got a victory point. So, that's the gist of that. I have used a ton of resources here, and so that's going to be cause for grouping up. And so now we have the end of that, and so we'll go on to blue's turn. Okay, blue has a village, so automatically gets a point. How handy is that? Then it's roll time. Oh, dang it. Alright. So I think the first thing we want to do is grow, and we'll continue to grow. 3 members, 3 tribes, so why not booster this area, and we'll go there. Alright, next move, let's have gather. Unfortunately, let's not do gather. Let's do, no, let's not. You know what, let's do move. No, let's not. I lie. We're going to do lead. That gives us another 2 cards. Pottery, once again, when we grow, we get 2 extra members. That's pretty cool. And basketry, which means we get to gather an additional resource every hex once we complete these. Alright, and that's that. Nothing else. So that's it for for blue. Now let's go back to red. You can see how quick the cadence of this game is by how fast you're going. Once again, score villages. Got a village. Up we go 1. Roll the dice. Look how fast we're going. Okay, what are we going to do? In this case, I think it would be best to gather, but then if we do, we get the lesser benefit. Is it worth it gathering right now? Is it better to... What is better? I'm just looking and I'm seeing some growing. Do we need to do some growing? Yes, let's do some growing. So, grow 3 members. Notice that we can't exceed 5, but we can sure bump up those numbers there. Second of all, we're going to move. We get to move up to 4, so we're going to move 2 there. We're going to move 2 there. And move, and that'll do it. We'll stay there. And that's its turn. Once again, it doesn't have anything it can complete yet. I need to work on that. But in the meantime, now we go right back over to blue. Blue has a village. Blue gets a point. Roll the dice. I'm not getting some good stuff here, but we probably need to gather. We need to get some gathering going on here. So we're going to do this, which means that we'll get the full 2 places, 2 resources. So what do we need? Well, we already have it. We don't quite have enough to make a village, but we do want to get some of this done. So we're going to go ahead and make pottery. So if we're going to grab 2. Because of this, we'll grab 2 of these, and we'll set those there. And then in one other place I can build. I generally would like to get more mountains, because I think that's probably for the best. There. Second is we're going to let's move. No, let's not move. Let's move. Alright. Okay, we'll move here. Let's do this. Here. Let's have a conflict. We're going to have a tournament. Alright, now you see that in the middle, once we're done making our actions, there's a conflict. There are more than 5 units, which means there's a battle about to happen. This isn't strategically probably beneficial either way. It's mostly just an annoyance factor, or as a way to show you how this actually works out. So, we're going to say, okay, the bow that the red has only works on offense. Right now they're not on offense, they're on defense. And so the first thing we do is we take a unit from every side, goes away. Then a unit from every side goes away again. And there we are. Now there's only one side remaining, and that side wins the conflict, generally. And so look, now we've kind of booted red out a little bit. Didn't really gain us anything, didn't really help us out too much, didn't really hurt them yet. Although there are times, for example, when you have certain goals and you see another player has some goals and you're like, I really don't want you to get that goal. You might take a risk and kind of go in and do that. You will definitely be considered annoying for doing that, but that's part of the game. It's Rise of Annoying Tribes, right? So anyway, now we're back here, and now we get to spend our hard-earned resources on something interesting. Ooh, I forgot. I also got Plentiful Stone. How did I miss that? And then, of course, it's empty, so we discard it. It's gone. So look what we can do now. We can actually get... actually, we can't do this, but we can do this. We can do basketry, or by spinning 2 rock and some forest tiles, basketry. That means whenever I gather now, I get an extra resource for every hex I gather from, and I get a victory point. So I'm going to stop there. I don't need to simulate the entire game, but I do want you to understand kind of how the ebbs and flows of the game. We actually got quite a few turns in, and that shows you just how quickly, when people know the game, they can get into it. Granted, this is the basic game. There's a ton of extra additional advanced features and advanced gameplay mechanics that you can introduce later as you get accustomed to playing this. But this is a sample of Rise of Tribes. So with that, let's get to my final thoughts on the game. Okay. Final thoughts on Rise of Tribes. What do I think? Well, as always, we will go over the cons first. And I don't know if I've mentioned this 20 times a day enough, but man, I do not like pizza box, Red Robin menu, like instruction manuals. Looks gorgeous, wonderful, but man, cumbersome on the table. Not my friend. However, I seem to be a lone reed in this regard. Most people have no problem with it all, so c'est la vie. The other thing I could probably say that might not be a pro is that it's not profoundly innovative. There's nothing here that moves the needle as far as gaming in general in some charted on direction. Maybe a point can be made that the meteorological conveyor belt is has some charm to it in an initiative sort of way, but the same thing can be accomplished with dice pools and rondelles and such. So whatever. And finally, I don't really have anything really honestly to criticize about it beyond those really tiny things. It's not a brain burner. I mean, the choices that you have are pretty determined and relatively easy to ascertain at any given time. Maybe if you've grown jaded of games that don't innovate, such that if you don't have something innovative, it's not worth it, and and you've grown, you don't have room anymore for games that are just simply refined experiences that are a joy to play. Maybe this is simple. Maybe people will feel like, hey, I really did want some more mind thought opportunities. So that's it. Let's get to the pros, because they are legion. Top-notch components. I think we all can agree with that. The two Kickstarters I did relatively close to each other were Grim Forest and this, and both of these just blew me away. Not since Mechs and Minions have I seen some just really quality, solid components. The tiles are very, very vivid, rich to look at, subtle details in the various places. You really know what the terrain tiles are and what they represent. There's no ambiguity there. The event tiles, nice and sturdy. All the pieces are just great. Meeples with their little spears and all that. The other thing is the advanced game versus the simple game. Now, how often I have found that someone will say, hey, we're going to give you this simple version of a game, a family edition or whatever. What it really is almost trite, stripped away, maybe even a tad condescending at times, like, here's two sticks. Once you click them together, then we give you a real game to play. This isn't the case here. The simple version, the basic version, without any of the advanced adornments, more than sufficient. I would rate it in the realm of, say, Emotep, for being something simple, streamlined, but challenging and fun. And so I was really glad to see that. The other thing is, sometimes on the other hand, you can have the opposite problem, which is you have this basic game, and then they add like modular features that like extend it way out, to the point where it's a little more cumbersome, and then you have this split where it's like, okay, I want to introduce this game to people, but I've already really gotten acclimated to the advanced version. Do I throw all of that at them, or do I have to like strip away and go back to the kiddie table and go with the simple version, even though I've gotten acclimated to the advanced version? This really works well. The features, the extras, they flow in really well. It just kind of like slides in smoothly. So really liked how they were able to like do that whole panorama of like simple to advanced, and just really well done. Turns are quick and turns are meaty. There is easily accessible rewards all the time at your pace. I mean, you get to choose the pace of the rewards, and that keeps things going on through the short, early, mid, and late game. Late game being, this isn't a very long game, so late game is a little of a misnomer. The focused shifts, though. You got your hex grid where you're moving your meeples, technologies that you're trying to get to beef up the ability to do other things. You've got resources to accrue, which of course feed that, and then it's just a lot of up-tempo back and forth. Really, really, really good. The 4 core choices are really easy for people to understand. They just are. It's really, really easy to go, hey, these are the 4 things you can do on your turn. You can grow, you can move, you can gather, you can lead. So simple as they are, they still lead to agonizing choices. I mean, do you want to use the dice, the 2 dice, and try and just maximize whatever the dice give you? Or are there times when you do have to eke out that action, even if it means being mooned? And doing one action means not doing another action. So there are trade-offs. As simple as it may sound, as you're playing it, there's sufficient trade-offs and sufficient things to think about that keeps me entertained. The events themselves are impacting. They're not overwhelming. They're not underwhelming. They seem like a little overwhelming at times, but I think that they do a good job of bringing equal parts of joy and suffering. Goals are an interesting thing, because instead of just getting these goals right away statically at the start of a game, or having to, you know, over time make this choice, like Ticket to Ride as an example, where you get these goals, you know, you start with the goals, you get goals, but there's also the trade-off, you know, if you don't do them, bad things happen. Here, goals are just like, they're almost an economy unto themselves. Everybody has the same goals, but not everybody ascribes the same priority or timing to them. You get to choose. Maybe you don't go that path as ferociously. Maybe someone else wants to just like chuck out goal after goal after goal and stuff. And so that makes it very interesting. Great, like I said, great mid-game goals. There's little steps to achieve to try and push you forward, even when other people are in other realms, getting their victory points in other ways. And the goals are open info, so opponents will be looking at you, and they're going to be watching and going, how can I mess with this guy or gal? The villages, I like them. I like the fact that you can put them out there, and then if you protect them, they generate points for you. It's sort of like being in Tokyo, on King of Tokyo, where it's like, okay, I'm just gonna, if I protect them, I'm gonna get some points, and they generate. So combat is odd. It's not your typical, like, I'm on a battlefront and I push you out of this hex, you push me out of this hex. There's no way to really stop someone from doing something in this game. You cannot stop them from taking an action. You cannot stop them from encroaching into any space you are on the map. So you can't really do it, but you can control the cost and the impact of that, and that's something you can do. It makes combat an attrition game. It's all about attrition. Like, everybody pays when combat plays out. It sort of reminds me of Viral, this game where you are viri entering someone's body and attacking certain organs, and if there's enough viri in this organ, then you have this sort of explosion of conflict that just sends everything into disarray. And so that's something to think about that this game provides too. It's I said it wasn't profoundly innovative, but I do think it's profoundly iterative in amalgamating the best of somewhat similar predecessors and contemporary games into a really fine, well-crafted experience. That's a good thing. And to be honest, the meteorological conveyor belt is subtle, seems like a simple thing, but it does actually give you surprisingly juicy choices that prompt you to have to think about, okay, am I doing this for my benefit, or am I going to lay it in such a way that I have a chance to moon the opponent that comes after me? And when you pull that off, it's devilishly satisfying. So that's the pros and cons, the cons and pros. In summary, what's a wacky way? If Spirit Island and Ticket to Ride and Splendor were gelatinous host bodies having a fist fight, and a giant asteroid collided into them and rearranged all of them in the quantum level and pulverized everything but the dark matter that overlapped all of them, yeah, I suppose you'd get Rise of Tribes. Maybe. Okay. Let's give a better example. And this one is in the computer world. Years and years and years ago, let's say decades ago, there was a game called Heroes of Might and Magic. And the thing about Heroes of Might and Magic is that while it did nothing that plenty of other games that came before it or during this age did as well, it pulled it off by doing so elegantly, remarkably, with such polish and pace and refinement, that it became a veritable classic that old-time video gamers will know and love, on the merits of that refined experience. Rise of Tribes is the same refined experience to me, because it bridges the often difficult, approachable and adoptable nature with the, hey, I want some meat and I want some quantifiable satisfaction in the choices I make. And it melds them together so that I can introduce this to people that haven't played games before, and I can personally actually feel fully engaged in this game, even though I play a lot of other games that are far, far more complex and intricate. And so I would say that Rise of Tribes is a hit in my camp. It fires on all cylinders in all of its modes, and for just about anybody that has even a slight inkling for enjoying board games. So with that, thanks again, and we'll see you next time on Harebrained Games.